I investigated the Canadian economy, and it's much worse than I thought. Canada isn't just financially struggling, it's on the brink of bankruptcy. Even though that Trudeau stepped down and Canada is going into a completely different direction, if you dig down deep into the Canadian economy, you will find out that what is happening now is nothing compared to what's coming. Because what is coming for Canada is way worse than anybody can possibly imagine. In 2005, the median income was $25,000, while the average house price was $241,000. Yes, there is a big difference. You almost need like 10 years of your income in order to buy a house. But fast forward to 2025, the median house price is $721,000, 2.5 times more expensive than it was 20 years ago. But the average income has grown by $20,000. So the average Canadian today needs around 15 to 20 years of their annual income in order to be able to buy a house. And even if you go and get a mortgage, most people still cannot possibly do that. If you buy a $721,000 house and you put a down payment of 20%, that will leave you with a loan of $576,000. Now, considering that mortgage rates are going to be 5.5%, you will take a mortgage for 25 years, which means that every single month you have to make a monthly payment of $3,500. At first glance, that doesn't seem like a big problem. But how much the average Canadian is making? The median income in Canada pre-tax is $45,000, which leaves you with $3,750 every single month. So if you deduct taxes from this amount, suddenly your monthly income is the amount of money that you have to pay in order to cover your entire mortgage. But let's just say hypothetically that you're not alone, you have a family. So your total household income is $90,000. If you deduct taxes, which are going to be $22,000 for $90,000 income, your monthly income is going to be $5,660. 60% of your budget is going to go into paying off your debt. And if you are financially literate, then you know for a fact that you shouldn't be paying more than a third of your income into your house. Because if you're paying more than that, then you're in trouble financially. And that's not even 50%. It's like 60 to 70% for the vast majority of Canadians. And the prices of everything went out, which made life in Canada absolutely impossible. So in this video, let's find out what exactly is happening with the Canadian economy. Can Canada survive this crisis? Or the financial crisis is going to be so bad that it will allow Trump to swipe in Canada and make it part of the United States. So if you're ready, give this video a thumbs up and let's dive in. To understand what is happening with Canada, you have to look at its geography. Because United States, its only neighbor, that's where all the problems of Canada starts, and this is literally the root cause of all the financial problems that Canada has today. It might not make any sense at the beginning. How is that a problem? But if you actually dig down into the Canadian economy, you will find out that this is the real problem. For a long time, Canada has been the colony of the UK, just like the United States. But the United States became independent much earlier. And even during the American Revolution, United States tried to take over Canada militarily. It failed. So it tried again in 1812. It failed again. United States wasn't happy that its rival, which is the United Kingdom, is right there just besides the United States watching it. So it wanted to take over Canada, but it couldn't. Which is why United States came out with a completely different plan. Why try to take Canada militarily when we can, over time, make Canada dependent on the United States? So making Canada dependent economically on the United States is going to make it much easier to turn Canada into the 51st state of the United States. Almost 75% of all the exports of Canada goes directly into the United States. 90% of all the Canadian oil goes to the United States. 98% of all the natural gas of Canada goes directly into the United States. Canada depends on the United States for its defense purposes. And if you look at the imports, where does Canada import its goods and services? Exactly. Almost 60% of that comes directly from the United States. And because of Trump's 25% tariff, 70% or 75% of all the Canadian goods that leave Canada to other countries, which is mainly the United States, their prices will increase in the US by 25%. But Canada represents a very small percentage of the entire imports of the United States. So it's not going to impact much the United States, but it will have a serious implication on Canadian businesses. Imagine you're having a business in Canada and you are exporting to the United States. Now, your prices, the prices of your goods in the US are going to rise, which means that Americans are going to buy less and less Canadian goods and services, which means that less money will be flowing to Canadian businesses, which means that they will become less profitable, and some of them, if not many of them, are not going to survive this crisis. Didn't Canada prepare a plan in order to defend itself against the United States, where people on the top of Canada who were ruling Canada did not understand that they're extremely vulnerable to the United States? Well, they knew that. In fact, they created a plan in order to prevent that. First of all, we have to increase the population of Canada. And right now, the population is 40 million people. But if you go back to 1970s, the population of Canada was 20 million people. So over a period of just 50 years, the population of Canada has doubled. Now, the question is that, how did they manage to do that? 15 million immigrants came to Canada over the period of 1970 to 2020. That is literally almost 50% of the entire Canadian population. Without a large enough population, Canada cannot create a large enough economy that would allow it in order to fund a large military in order to stand up to the United States. So growing the number of your population was the first priority in the Canadian list. In fact, they came out with a plan that they called it Century Initiative. And the point of this plan is to grow the Canadian population to around 100 million people by the year 100. And what happens when you actually bring so many people to the country? What happens when you double the size of your population? That increases the demand drastically. And when you have so much demand within the economy, that increases the prices. Yesterday, 10 people wanted to buy this house. But today, 20 people want to buy the exact same house, and each of them are offering a higher price, and that is how demand grows prices. So if you double the population over the period of 50 years, you know what is happening. So the root cause of these prices isn't what happened yesterday or last year or 2 years ago. Just imagine for a moment if Canada did not grow its population from 20 million to 40 million. Today, the Canadian population would be like 20 million people, or probably less than that. And chances that the United States will take over Canada would be significantly higher, because you have a neighbor, and it's your only neighbor, that has a population of 320 million people. And if you have like a 20 million population, your chances to stand up to the United States goes literally to zero. The second thing that the Canadian government did is by bringing capital to the Canada. In the United States, there are different ways to attract investors. For example, if you go to Silicon Valley, you have most of the technology companies, and investors come to Silicon Valley in order to invest in those startups that tomorrow could worth billions of dollars, and in some cases, they can worth trillions of dollars. But in Canada, you don't have that luxury. Canada is not huge enough in order to attract so many talents, and you don't have those tech industries that the United States has. And that is why Canada came out with a completely different approach. If we make it easy for people to come and buy houses in Canada, they will bring money. So we are going to remove all the regulations and make it much easier. If you're in China, Russia, India, European Union, the United States, come and buy property in Canada. If you're wondering why house prices have increased from $241,000 to as much as like $721 billion, well, this is your answer. The second problem is that Canada attracts high-skilled people. When those people are coming to Canada, they're not going to work in construction. And when you have so much demand for houses, you need people to come and work in constructions, and you don't have those people to work in construction. Suddenly, there is a limited supply in houses while the demand has grown substantially. So these two factors led prices in Canada to grow so much that the average Canadian right now cannot possibly afford a house. The question is that what would happen if Canada stops the flow of immigrants and stops the foreigners to buy property in Canada? These are the two reasons that have been growing the Canadian economy over the last 50 years. the economy won't grow as fast as it's supposed to. Every person that comes into the Canada, he starts working in Canada, he starts paying taxes in Canada, and he starts buying things. He goes to the grocery, he rents a place, he takes a mortgage, he buys a car, and all of that spending drives the economy forward. The more people you bring to Canada, the faster the economy grows. If all those people stop coming into Canada and the birth rate in Canada is as bad as they are in the United States or any European country, there won't be enough people born in Canada. So if you don't have that, suddenly those GDP forecasts that we had around 1 to 2% over the next couple of years are not happening. You cannot possibly expect more than that. And if the inflow of immigrants stops, then it's not going to be even 1 to 2%. It might be even something around 1% annually. And that's not enough to grow the Canadian economy to stand up to the United States. Canada is going to become even more dependent on the United States. The main question right now is, can Canada afford to move away from the United States? If you look at the Canadian and the US map, you will see a lot of pipelines. And these pipelines have been built over the last 50 to 60 years from Canada to the United States because they're different kind of oil. Canada has mainly heavy oil. So you have light oil and then you have heavy oil. And in order for that oil to be used in something, it must be refined. You can't simply just extract oil from the ground and use it for your car as a gasoline. It must be refined, which means that it must be heated up to the point where it can be consumed by the consumers. And to do that process, you need to build refineries that cost billions of dollars. And Canada does not have enough refineries in order to refine heavy oil. On the other side, United States is the largest country in refining heavy oil, which is why Canada sells most of its oil at a huge discount to the United States that refines it and use it for the domestic consumption. So if Canada wants to sell its heavy oil to other countries such as Japan, China, European Union, it has to build a completely new infrastructure. First of all, you need to spend billions to build new pipelines from those places into the ports where it can be actually shipped in tankers. Secondly, they have to actually buy those ships. A single such a ship could cost $100 million. And you're not buying like one ship, you're going to buy an entire fleet, maybe 20, 30, 50 ships. So you're looking into an investment of around $5 to $7 billion. And you cannot simply sell your heavy oil to any other country. If Canada sells its heavy oil to a country such as Spain, and Spain does not have refineries for heavy oil, then that oil is absolutely useless. Which is why if you don't invest in your own refineries, such as the United States did in building refineries for heavy oil in the US, then you will have to sell it specifically to countries who can actually refine it. Building the infrastructure for LNG is much more expensive. You see, if you're actually selling LNG, then the much easier and the much faster option is to build a pipeline from the place where you extract the LNG to the customers. That is the easiest and the fastest way. So if Canada starts suddenly selling that LNG in tankers, then it's going to be much more expensive. First of all, you have to build this kind of terminals for LNG. Each of them can cost anything between $20 billion to $40 billion. So you're looking into $120 billion of investment upfront. On top of that, you have to build pipelines that will come to these terminals in the first place. And that can cost anything between $3 to $12 billion. And then once it got to the terminal, you have to buy those tankers, which cost at least one of them $200 million. And if you want to buy a fleet of them, it can cost you anything between $6 to $12 billion. So if Canada tomorrow wants to be independent economically from the United States, it must make an investment of $100 billion, potentially $200 billion. And the question is that, will Canada ever recoup this investment that it's making? Well, the answer is no, because most of this infrastructure was already built over the last 50, 60, and 70 years, and finally they are paying off. And that allows Canada to sell its oil at a huge discount to the United States. Canada is going to make a $200 billion investment into that. The money that's supposed to go into roads, for example, healthcare, and other infrastructure to maintain the quality of life that you have right now is going to go into this kind of infrastructure, which means that prices are going to go higher and the quality of life is going to go down. Thus, Canada actually has the money to do so. In 2024 to 2025, the Canadian government made around $500 billion. On the other side, Canada spent $537 billion. So there is a deficit of almost $40 billion. The Canadian government is already spending way more than it's earning. So the only way for Canada to finance such a project is for them to take a loan of $200 billion. And if you look at the debt to national GDP of Canada, it's over 100% already. So taking that kind of a debt with an interest rate of anything between 3 to 6% is insane. It's only going to skyrocket the national debt. And because Canada is changing its policy on immigrants, less people are going to come into Canada, which means that less people are going to pay taxes in Canada, which means that less revenue is going to flow into Canada, which means that there is going to be a very slow economic growth over the next couple of years. And this national debt is only going to grow, something that the Canadian government cannot possibly afford. So if Canada is actually going to move forward to become independent from the United States, you're looking into a few $100 billion investment that Canada has to make. Plus, now it's actually stopping the flow of immigrants, which means less money is going to come into the Canadian budget. Plus, there's a 25% tariff from the United States and also a 25% tariff from Canada to the United States, which is making it even more difficult for businesses to survive. So if you think that the current situation is so difficult, then you have no idea what's coming. If you think that you can rely on the government, then you're mistaken, my friend, because the government is bankrupt. The government is broke. It can barely survive. It's running on $40 billion of deficit every single year, and now it's planning to increase that spending. Maybe it's even going to increase taxes on the individuals. That is why the only way that you can save yourself is to learn how to start investing, is to learn how you can make money and put that money to work. Because if your money is not working for you, you are never going to become financially independent. If you have learned how to invest 5 years ago, you would by now be financially independent. If you would have learned that 10 years ago, you would be way better financially than you can possibly imagine. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.